Hello, my name is Areej Yousef, and this is my collaborator Kerry Leech. We're here from Griffith University, and our presentation today is entitled "It Would Be Nice If Someone Took the Load Off You," and it's about new Australian mothers of Arabic-speaking background and the challenges of maintaining their heritage language with their children.
I'm going to start today by talking about the social context. Arabic speakers are a large and very diverse migrant group in Australia, and they've been around for quite some time. But the 2016 census shows that the number of Arabic speakers has increased by 34,500 since 2011. Arabic is the third most widely spoken language in Australia after English and Mandarin Chinese, although there is a much smaller community of Arabic speakers in Queensland where we did our study. The Arabic language is a core cultural value for Muslims due to its status and prestige as the language of the Quran. Literacy in Arabic is considered essential to be able to read the Quran, as translations are disfavoured. New Australian Arabic speaking families are highly motivated to maintain their heritage language. There's plenty of research to support that, but at the same time there's a strong expectation of migrants to quickly shift to English, and in the case of some of the smaller communities that shift can be quite sudden and quite dramatic. There's a lack overall of institutional support for community languages, particularly so in Queensland. One of the factors that we need to talk about that had a very big effect on the women in our study was the stereotyping of Arabs and particularly Muslims in Australia. Mansouri has shown that Muslims and Arabs are widely considered to be a threat to social cohesion as a result of media stereotyping, and hostility to Muslim women is particularly serious as the most visible icons of the Islamic faith. A 2017 survey of 243 incidents involving physical, verbal and online attacks on Muslims showed that women were the main targets, especially those with Islamic head covering. They constituted just under 80% of the victims, and sadly more than half of them had their children with them at the time of the incident. We situate our study within the field of family language policy because we're interested in what families do with language in their daily interactions, their beliefs and ideologies about language and language use, their goals and efforts to shape language use and learning outcomes. We follow Fishman's stipulation that the family is the most common and inescapable basis of mother tongue transmission, bonding, use and stabilisation. Families have been shown to play a vital role in language maintenance, and we also follow the view that the family is a community of language practice. The role of mothers has been found to be very important in language transmission. Interaction between mothers and children at home is a critical setting for intergenerational language transmission, as Fishman has shown. Mothers are also often the most actively involved in raising their children. In the case of immigrant mothers, we could apply this point to all immigrant mothers, but particularly all immigrant non-English speaking background mothers, but particularly Arabic speaking mothers, because there is a strong traditional expectation for mothers to stay at home with their children. But these mothers may be additionally challenged by lack of English proficiency, different parenting styles in the new culture, and the loss of family and community support. Our study contributes in the sense that we have found very little research on how Arabic background families preserve their heritage language, and very few studies of family language policy and bilingualism among Arabic-speaking families in Australia. We found only one other study that had been done in Queensland. Areej did the data collection, and she did this by means of a focus group and semi-structured interviews which explored the linguistic perceptions and practices in English and Arabic of 4 new Australian mothers of Arabic-speaking background as they negotiated their new language reality. Our focus today is on the fact that although the mothers considered it to be vital for their children to be proficient in both English and Arabic, they said that raising children bilingually was challenging and stressful. And in this presentation, we're going to report on these challenges and how the mothers negotiated them. And we're also going to make some recommendations for future research. The profile of the mothers shows that they were all quite well educated, but that in almost all cases, their education had been interrupted by having children, but also by conflict. They'd been in Australia for varying lengths of time. They had between 2 and 3 children. They came from new Arabic communities. They all rated their English proficiency as quite low, and interestingly, their children's proficiency as quite high. And at this point, I'll hand over to Areej.
So before we talk about the challenges, I would like to reiterate the mothers' motivations to maintain Arabic with their children at home. They thought it was quite important because Arabic was considered essential to access the Islamic holy book, the Quran, and the Prophet's sayings. So it was partly related to their Islamic culture and religion. It was also important to keep connected with family back home, and Arabic was the mean of that connection. It was also part of their children's identities, and therefore they needed to nurture that linguistic and cultural part. The challenges were varied, but I'd like to start on a personal level. One of the main challenges those mothers faced was their social isolation, as Kerry mentioned earlier. They described this by saying things like, "We don't go out with foreigners." And although they said that, it is important to remind here that they had experienced verbal abuse and felt extremely insecure by their inability to respond back to their attackers because they simply didn't have the language to do so. Maintaining Arabic was a heavy responsibility and almost a burden for these mothers. They felt that it was their sole responsibility, they had to take care of it, and it was in addition to their everyday duties with their children. They also mentioned that time was an issue with the children spending almost 6 hours a day at school, and English exposure was much higher than Arabic as a result. They also spoke about their children being potentially lost if they didn't maintain Arabic at home with them, because one of them, for example, said, "What would happen to his children or her children in the future if I don't teach them Arabic at this stage?" They also felt a need for institutional support as a result of this stress and responsibility, and they felt that this would help them deliver structured Arabic lessons. They were prepared to commit time and money for a suitable resource. Even though they sounded desperate and they did want Arabic schools, they were quite critical of some schools that were available previously in Queensland. They talked about a lack of organization in these schools, a severe lack in professional teachers. Teachers were usually community members who volunteered to teach and didn't necessarily know how to do so. The focus in those classes was mainly on religious practices rather than Arabic language lessons, and as a result, the children usually disliked going to the school, and the parents were between two difficult positions. They either don't send them and they don't learn Arabic, or they send them and they don't like it. And so to compensate for those problems, the mothers used a range of strategies at home with their children. One of the main strategies that they used was reading Arabic stories. They frequently borrowed stories and books from the council library and read to their children on a daily basis, or mostly. They also organized their own vacation school in summer holidays, and they taught the children Arabic in this little school, which was quite successful, they report. They heavily used television shows, satellite, DVDs, and language learning apps. And they connected with their relatives frequently via social media, using things like WhatsApp and Facebook, where they encouraged the children to text their family members in Arabic. They also frequently traveled back to their hometowns with their children, even though it was quite expensive and time-consuming. And so, in conclusion, the mothers are motivated to maintain English and Arabic, but they do find it is a heavy responsibility. They were socially isolated, they are concerned about their children's identity development, and there seems to be tension between the religious and secular educational functions of Arabic after-hour schools. And therefore, we recommend a need for further research to explore the current and potential levels of curriculum and financial support for after-hour schools in Queensland. We need to look at what is happening in those schools and explore factors impacting the teaching quality and classroom practices in after-hour schools, and possibly develop more formalized literacy education for Arabic-speaking children, which could provide a welcome solution to the problems these families are having. And finally, since our study focused on 4 mothers, a larger scale study of family language policy and heritage language transmission in new Australian families could provide more generalizable conclusions. Finally, we welcome you to contact us through those emails, and we welcome any questions, further discussions, and we thank you for your time today.
Thank you.